Welcome to the Release to Shine podcast. I'm your host, Megan Wade. And today, my friend Elliot and I will be discussing resilience. What is it? Let's find out as we bring him in. Welcome, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing just fine, Megan. How are you?
I am well, thank you. Can you tell our audience who you are?
I am Elliott Adams. I am an educator by trade, and I am a distinguished colleague, as you made mention of earlier, of noticing the co host title and the co host role that I am fulfilling with regards to the Release to Shine podcast. And it's a pleasure to be here. I have been an educator since about 2000, 2005. When I started my career, but ventured off into other avenues. And so it's a pleasure to be here.
Wonderful, my friend. We're talking about resilience. What is
Yes.
it?
Resilience. Resilience is a strength or an internal intrinsic strength that we all have in some fashion or form that allows us to persevere in various types of circumstances, maybe life events or the throes of life, whatever the circumstances are, we are able to uh, demonstrate the fortitude to push through adverse situations.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that, my co host. The
Mhm.
dictionary said able to withstand or recover quickly from difficult conditions.
Yes.
The
Um,
ability to recover quickly. Now, when I think of resilience, Nelson Mandela comes to mind.
mm,
And he comes to mind because he was sentenced to a life imprisonment. He
mm,
spent 27 years incarcerated, but he
yeah.
had plans to leave prison. In his book, Long Walk to Freedom, he chronicles his journey. He shared how he knew he was going to be imprisoned and he planned to leave prison. So his mind was not in prison. His body was, but not
Mm,
his mind. His thoughts were always to leave. And when
yeah.
he was there, interestingly, he was not having pity parties. He was having political meetings with his comrades who were there with him and others who eventually joined the group. He exercised in his tiny cell. For 1 straight hour. He would run on the spot, one spot, for 1 hour every day.
Mm, mm,
How many of us would have been able to keep our minds steadfast, focused on our goals? But this man did it. When
mm.
I think of resilience, that's who comes to mind first of all. Who comes to mind when you think of resilience, Elliot?
Hmm. That's a great question. Um, uh, I'm reminded of there's probably it's more probably more of a modern adage, if you will, that says when you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. And so
Mm.
when I hear you speak of Nelson Mandela in his carceral state, if you will, I am reminded of that phrase or that saying because, yes, while his physical body was in prison or incarcerated, his his psychological faculties were not, and being able to plan and carry on as though his physical body was not in a carceral state is very commendable beyond measure. When I think of someone who is resilient, many people in my life come to mind. I would, without trying to sound vain or arrogant, I think of even myself in some of my own life circumstances. I think of my father, of Ghanaian, who came to this country in the late 1960s, and just some of the adversities that he faced. Those are two people that come to mind. But uh, resilience is an attribute that people develop over time. While I heard the dictionary definition of being able to overcome a situation quickly, I don't think it's by accident that you overcome it quickly. I think what takes time is the process to get to that quick state. Well, resilience is a characteristic of people that is developed over time, but when its time comes to fruition, they are able to quickly move from their set of circumstances, the current set, to the future set of circumstances to overcome.
I agree with you. Nelson Mandela point out in his book Conversations with Myself, he said the cell is an ideal place to learn to know yourself, to
Mhm.
search realistically and regularly the process of your own mind and feelings. And that is from his book Conversations with Myself. There is something else that he said, but I'll share that with you a little later as I allow you to speak.
Absolutely. The word incubator comes to mind. And specifically, when I think of just some of my life experiences, I remember being a part of a business incubator some years ago where it is a facility where business owners go to learn and grow themselves as business owners. Going back to Nelson Mandela as the example, you could think of his incarceration as an incubating state where he had the time uh, and the fortitude, the mental strength to build up uh, his resources and things of that nature, the intangibles, uh, and uh, be able to manifest them once he was released. What a great example of resilience. In the same vein of resilience, I would ask you, when facing adversity, how do individuals tap into their reservoirs of resilience? What are some things that you think people can do to extract resilience out of a adverse situation?
Well, first of all, I would say it is hard to tell people not to focus on the situation. It is very hard to tell them not to. God is true to his promises that we should cast our cares upon him and that he cares for us. In Romans 8:28, that is a hard one too. For we know that all things work together for good. All things work together for good. That can be confusing for some people who don't have that relationship with the Lord. But
Mm-hmm.
one has to get to that point where they're not focusing on themselves. Listening to music, uplifting music, I have a playlist of 160 odd songs that
Mhm.
gave me strength during my period of adversity. And I would encourage individuals who are going through any kind of adversity to find a playlist of songs that speak to your heart, that brings comfort to your mind. Take
Mhm.
walks, long walks, exercise. And while you're taking your walks, you put your headphones on and listen to those music. Listen to messages, sermons. Now we have even more preachers online with messages of hope. Spend time listening to some of those sermons. Read the Bible. The story of Joseph, the story of Job. Those are two uplifting, inspiring stories that will help you to realize you're not the only one going through this stuff.
Yes.
There are so many others who have gone through it and survive. You too can and will survive.
Amen.
That is what I suggest. Get to know the Lord. Spend time in prayer. Ask Him to take it. Lord, I can't deal with this. This is too much. But you have promised in your word that if I cast all my cares upon you, then you're going to give me that peace. He gives us peace in the midst of our storms.
Mm.
Listen to a playlist of good music and then read books. Find books to read of people who have gone through adversity and have overcome. Can you imagine Nelson Mandela, after spending 27 years in prison, led the South African political, what was the leader of
Yes.
South Africa? And he has shown the world that you don't need to have anger in your heart,
Mm.
but you can deal with even those who hurt you with peace.
Mm.
And that is when you're not having these pity parties and focusing on revenge. You can have peace. If you're angry, you'll never have peace. But you can and you will have peace when you forgive. I hope I've answered that.
Oh, by far, yes, yes. And thank you for your explanation and detail. I think resilience is a refined art. I don't believe that you just are able to um, immediately address people who come against you with peace. Even biblical examples, I think of one of the most intellectual uh, people in the Bible, Paul. Before he was Paul, we knew him as Saul.
Mhm.
And Saul was not he was not the most positive example of resilience. In fact, he was the antithesis of positive resilience. In that and just being open about that, I mean, he killed and he destroyed and did all of those things, and then on the road to Damascus had his conversion experience. And even in the Bible, when he converted to Paul, there were doubters that were really questioning, his conversion and still trying to revert him back to his older days of having been Saul. And he went on from there to just be an awesome man of God in in his travels to the different churches of the time, and one of the things I loved about how he sort of demonstrates the peace that you speak of is in the way he starts his letters to the different churches. And he addresses them, of course, cordially, but one of the things I think that's a repeated saying of his is, pray for me as I pray for you.
Right.
So that statement is an acknowledgement of uh, his own shortcomings
Mm.
and asking those who are praying for him to uh, reciprocate the prayers so that all uh,
Mm.
all transgressions are covered, if you will. I think he certainly is a great example and definitely one that many people can look to under God, under the Lord,
Mhm.
as an example of resilience not being perfect, but
Mm.
being an awesome move and a mighty move of God to
Yes,
change, transform people from one state to another.
absolutely. Yes. I want to read another part of Nelson Mandela's statement from his
Yes.
book Conversations with Myself. He said, "At least, if for nothing else, the cell gives you the opportunity to look daily into your entire conduct, to overcome the bad, and to develop whatever is good in you. Regular meditation, say about 15 minutes a day before you turn in, can be fruitful in this regard. You may find it difficult at first to pinpoint the negative features in your life, but the 10th attempt may yield rich rewards. Never forget that a saint is a sinner who keeps on trying."
Mm,
So when he says the 10th attempt, it is telling me that we have flaws within us. Whatever the cell is, even if we're not in prison, whatever that challenge is, that
mhm,
we can use this time to see flaws within our own lives. Because it's a time for self searching and reflection. And
mhm.
that helps us to get over the challenge, to find that resilience within us to move forward.
Absolutely. In thinking of my professional experience, one word I heard you say among everything you said was reflection. In education, educators engage in reflective practice, meaning they take time to think about what has happened in their professional experience, whether in the classroom, whether a professional development opportunity, whatever the case may be. They take time to reflect on what has transpired and think of what worked, what didn't work, what could be done to enhance the quality or enhance the experience. I think engaging in reflection is essential to developing yourself as aside from being a professional, just in terms of personal growth, being able to understand uh, what has based on what has happened, what you could do better, what you could leave alone. You can make those assessments through reflection in becoming the best person you can possibly be. And speaking even on Nelson Mandela, in terms of his, uh, we may never know other than his writings just the specifics of his daily routine, but you have to imagine that he had a great amount of time to reflect
Absolutely.
and to consider his specific circumstances, and certainly once he was released from incarceration, how he was able to take those times of reflection and apply it to his leadership abilities, leading South Africa after his release. What a tremendous opportunity for reflection to take flight, if you will, to be uh, an awesome vehicle that not only Mr. Mandela but the people of the nation of South Africa can grow from and learn from and experience.
Mhm. Yes, true. Another person who comes to mind is Chris Wilson, who wrote the book The Master Plan.
Mm,
This book I read, it could have been the end of 2019, early 2020. Chris committed a crime when he was in his teenage years. He was sent to prison for life,
mm,
but he spent 16 years. The first several years, he was bitter and angry.
mm,
But eventually, there was a young man in the prison who was given a life sentence, and he was positive. He taught Chris. Chris passed his GED, and these guys became friends. They were like brothers.
mm,
Whenever this young man's family came to visit, the parents treated Chris as if he was a part of their family. And these two guys really became close. Chris could not understand why this young man was so positive when he had been in prison for a longer period and was given a life sentence. This young man influenced him to change his behavior and his mindset.
mm,
Chris spent 16 years in prison and was released before that young man. Every course, every training that they had in the prison, he took it.
mm,
Anything that he could do. He started reading books. He changed his life. He began helping others to grow, leading group sessions. He was given the opportunity to pursue a bachelor's degree, and then he started his master's degree. Now, Chris changed his whole circumstance because of his thinking.
mm,
Anybody who has gone through adversity or is going through adversity, there is hope for you. I want you to know there's hope for you. You can get through it. So many others have done so. Elliot, I'm going to give you the last few minutes to wrap up. This has been
Oh,
interesting.
yes, it has. When you're speaking of resilience, there is just in my experience, I have learned that there may be times and circumstances where particular answers that people give you, while they are encouraging or inspiring, they may not be an exact fit for how you uh, need to be able to apply an answer to a set of circumstances. What I would encourage anyone to do in terms of their own resilience is to find your own answer
Mm-hmm.
and don't stop until you find your own answer.
Yes.
Um, and the reason why I say that is because you have been fearfully and wonderfully made. You are an own copy of yourself. And even when you have people who are twins,
Mm-hmm.
even though they're twins, they are two individual people, and people themselves are unique as a fingerprint.
Mm-hmm.
If you know anything about fingerprints, every fingerprint on every finger is a different pattern, and you have millions of people with 10 different fingerprints on their fingers. So I'm saying all of that to say you are a unique person with unique needs, and you need to find your own unique answer to whatever your adversities are,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to overcome them and to refine and build or rebuild your resilience. So continue to be encouraged in finding your own answer towards resilience.
Wonderful. Thank you. To our target group, believe in yourself. You were released from that prison or that job to shine.